Hi everyone, my name is Lorraine and today I will be presenting one of the lessons from our new Business English skill set course, which is available in the Intrepid English Academy. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to raise your hand. You can also send me a message in the chat box, or alternatively, there is an option for Q&A. If you use the Q&A option, then I will address those questions at the end of the webinar. So let's get started. Have any of you delivered a presentation before? The question is about any language. Have you ever delivered a presentation at work? You may have done it at school or university, either in your native language or in English. So let's see if anyone has delivered a presentation before. Okay, no one. So don't worry, you're not alone. I wanted to ask that question because in my experience, it's quite rare for English learners to have presented in English, or if they have, they're not very confident doing it. So that's absolutely normal. Here you can see this is from the World Economic Forum. They surveyed 40 countries to assess which countries had a good level of English, a strong level of English in the workforce, so people at work. As you can see here, some of the countries on the left-hand side had a very good score. It may not surprise you to know that the Netherlands scored the highest. Then you have high, moderate, low, and very low. So I think that a couple of the people who are here today, you guys are from countries such as Turkey and Russia. We also have a Greek person with us. Greece doesn't come up on that list there, but you can see generally the English levels are pretty low. In all of these countries, you can see a range of different levels of English, but none of them reach what we would call C1 or C2 level, according to the Common European Framework of Languages. So although we have 40 different countries, many of them developed, have a strong economy, millions and millions of people, none of the countries have reached advanced level. However, according to recent estimates, 1.5 billion people are English language learners worldwide. They say estimates because it's actually quite hard to define what a language learner is. Do they speak English very well? Are they currently learning English? Do they use English at work? 1.5 billion people globally are at some stage learning English or speak English or have learned English as a student. Now, as one of the few languages in the world that's seen as a lingua franca or a universal language for business, it's quite surprising with so many people speaking and learning English that the normal standard is relatively low. So reaching a point in your English studies where you are able to speak English fluently and you are able to deliver a presentation at work, maybe even do job interviews in English, this really will be a deciding factor in many cases, in terms of if you get a job or if you get a promotion, things like that. So although many people speak English, very few are really proficient in English. So that's why we have created the Business English skill set range of courses in the Intrepid English Academy. We wanted to provide really good quality business English training for students at all levels. So the Business English Basics course really is an introduction to business English. It's totally fine if you haven't ever studied any business English before. If you have a pre-intermediate level or above, then you will be able to understand and learn a lot from this course. Other courses, when we have a new one coming out every month, really help you to master specific business English skills. Okay, so if you're working towards a negotiation at work, or you generally want to improve your English small talk, then you can do so by studying one of our courses in the Academy. And today, this webinar generally is to focus on the presentations course. This is one that I have written myself. Now, even if you don't need English at work, these courses are interesting, they're fun, they will help you to build your confidence speaking English, and generally they've got some really, really great feedback from our students. Not only do we have the self-study courses here, but we also have a group class. Okay, so I run the professional group class, which is currently on a Thursday morning, GMT, but you don't have to join that group class to enjoy the course. You can have one-to-one English lessons as well with an English teacher, either with me or one of the other English teachers here at Intrepid English. So we're here today to talk about this presentations course, which includes a lot already, so much that I had to split it into 3 different courses, or 3 different parts of a course. Part 1 on structure has been launched this month, and that's what I'll be talking about today. Then we've got the content section of the course, which will be launched in May. And finally, we have the delivery section that will be launched in July. Each part of the course contains quizzes and vocabulary, and you can earn badges for completing different sections. But the main thing that I really love about this course is that it will show you step by step how to create a really compelling presentation. Okay, so at each point of the course, you have a different task, and I'll tell you a little bit about those in a moment. So let's take a look at part 1, structure. Here you can see a quote from Nancy Duarte. "A single idea. It could start a groundswell. It could be a flashpoint for a movement, and it can actually rewrite our future. But an idea is powerless if it stays inside of you." Now, Nancy Duarte is a very, very highly respected expert in presentations. She did her TED Talk back in 2011, and since then she has become the person to read and do public speaking about this topic. So you may wonder what some of this vocabulary means in this quote. Okay, she's talking about a groundswell. Okay, you may know that swell means to grow in size. And this particular word describes a change in the way society sees something, and that change spreads. So it's a cultural shift. So Nancy Duarte talks a lot about how presentations can change the world, and that's her main aim. That's what she wants to do. She wants to really make an impact on the world. I'll check you've learned that word a little bit later. Here's some more vocabulary. Convey is a verb, to communicate an idea or view. Mediocre, adjective, of moderate quality, neither good nor bad, barely adequate. To stay intact, that's a phrase, and we use that to describe something which has remained unbroken in one piece. Okay, flatline, now that could be a noun or a verb. Here we're going to use it as a verb, and that's to remain at a continuous low level or to die. So if something flatlines, it's dead, it's gone. It hasn't succeeded, it hasn't gone well. Commonplace, that could be both an adjective and a noun. Here we'll use the noun form, something ordinary or common. Status quo, this is the existing or current norm, the standard, okay, what we currently know to be the case. Loftiness, I love this word. This is a noun, and this describes superiority and impressiveness. Phenomenon, a noun, something which is extraordinary. Maybe something unexplainable or something really amazing. Okay, metaphor, a noun. an image used to represent something. So these words will come up in Nancy Duarte's TED Talk, which I'm going to show you in a second. And it's worth learning these words because they are commonly in use. They're more advanced. So write these down if you want to. Alternatively, we actually have vocabulary flashcards as part of the course. So let's look at Nancy Duarte's TED Talk. It's called The Secret Structure of Great Talks. So in her talk, she teaches several really interesting lessons. Firstly, to structure your talks like those of history's most powerful speakers, using her special structure. To motivate listeners by comparing the status quo, so what is now, to a brighter future. Use rhetorical devices to boost understanding and retention. Put your audience at the center of your presentation. And tell stories that will make your message relatable. And how to craft a CTA that moves people to action. That stands for call to action, something which should be at the end of every presentation. Basically what you want the audience to do as soon as they've finished watching your presentation. Here you can see a very simple version of the secret structure that Nancy Duarte describes in her talk. She wanted to describe the main differences between a story and a presentation, because stories can be really compelling. You can pass on traditional stories about families and culture, and for hundreds of years these stories can remain intact, they can stay together. But a presentation, really, when you aren't super confident about presenting, or you don't know your subject very well, or maybe you do, but the presentation just isn't delivered very well, then she says it flatlines. Remember that word, meaning to just fall dead, not work. So what was the difference? Why are stories so compelling, but presentations are quite boring in many cases? And she discovered this structure in many of the most effective presentations that we know today. And this is a much closer look at that structure. At the beginning, the presenter needs to paint a picture of the realities of the current world. You're describing the current situation, which can always be improved. Okay, and then you explain what could be. You're describing what the world could be like if your idea is adopted. Okay, the first section there is called the turning point. It's the call to adventure. In literature and in the movies, we call this moment the inciting incident. So we need to make this gap as big as possible. What is compared with what could be? What is not great? What could be amazing? Then you need to traverse between those two. What is, what could be? What is not great? What could be amazing? What is, what could be amazing? The middle part of the presentation is where you're contrasting what is and what could be. You may do that many times, or maybe it's only necessary to do that once or twice. It depends on the length of your presentation and, of course, the subject matter. Now, at the end, you have what is, and then we have the final turning point. This is the call to action, CTA. This describes the finish line that the audience needs to cross. Okay, the action that you want them to take when they've finished listening to your presentation. This is the end of the talk, and you leave it on a higher plane than it began. At the end, you are explaining a reality where your idea is adopted in a way that leaves the audience feeling really empowered, inspired, and committed to taking action. It may be quite hard work, but eventually it will pay off. It will be worth it. You will be rewarded with the new bliss, as Nancy Duarte calls it. So let's listen to a part of the talk. The talk is 18 minutes long. Didn't have time to include it all in here, so I've just taken a little section out of it. And this is where Nancy Duarte describes the reason for this motion, this upwards and downwards motion, this repetitive, what could be, what is contrast. Okay, so here she is.
Now, on your way to change the world, people are going to resist. They're not going to be excited. They may love the world the way it is, so you'll encounter resistance. That's why you have to move back and forth. It's similar to sailing. When you're sailing against the wind and there is wind resistance, you have to move your boat back and forth and back and forth. That's so you can capture the wind. You have to actually capture the resistance coming against you when you're sailing. Now, interesting, if you capture the wind just right and you set your sail just right, your ship will actually sail faster than the wind itself. It's a physics phenomenon. So by planting in there the way they're going to resist between what is and what can be, it's actually going to draw them towards your idea quicker than should you not do that. So after you've moved back and forth between what is and what could be, the last turning point is a call to action, which every presentation should have. But at the very end, you need to describe the world as a new bliss. This is utopia with my idea adopted. This is the way the world is going to look when we join together and we solve this big problem. So you need to use that as your ending in a very poetic and a dramatic way.
Okay, so in that clip, Nancy Duarte explained the significance of the back and forth motion and why it should be repeated several times. And she used a sailing phenomenon about wind resistance as a metaphor for maybe the audience's resistance to your idea. It's quite a natural process for people to resist change, especially if that change requires hard work. So by presenting them with that resistance and comparing what could be with what is, then many times you can possibly build up enough momentum to convince them that your idea should be adopted. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that one of my favorite things about our new presentations course is that at each step of the journey, you are able to prepare a real presentation step by step with my guidance. And eventually, by the end of the course, you will have learned how to structure a presentation, how to fill it with really interesting content. And by the end of the course, you will be able to deliver your very own presentation with corrections, of course, from your teacher, lots of feedback on how to improve. But by taking you step by step, you can see that understanding the fundamental ideas of presentations and applying them and getting feedback from your teacher, you will be able to present in English. And then it's just a case of getting better and better. Okay. So the first presentation builder task in the course is to choose a topic, of course. Now I've provided you with some topics to get you started. Of course, if you have your own idea, that would be fantastic. I normally recommend that you choose a topic you're passionate about, because that will give you something you can talk about for quite some time. Okay, maybe a hobby or something, because you can use personal anecdotes in there, personal stories. Or it could be something that you need to present for work. There's no reason why you can't work with your teacher on something you really need to work on. Okay, that's the beauty of having a one-to-one lesson. Here are some of the presentations that we've created already. We've had some really interesting ideas, and by taking it step by step from the very beginning, crafting your concept, working on the content, and then finally working on the delivery of your presentation, there's really no reason why you can't create a really great, compelling, beautiful, and powerful presentation with the help of your teacher. And it's also a really good pronunciation exercise to work on too. Okay, do you remember earlier I asked you what groundswell meant, and I gave you a definition. So this is just an example of one of the many vocabulary flashcards that we have, and they are placed in many different places within the course just to keep testing your comprehension of the vocabulary and to test your memory as well. So if you just learn the words within the TED Talk, okay, great. But you'll forget them if you don't use them. So by learning the definition, maybe watching the TED Talk a second time, studying the vocabulary flashcards, and then keep coming back to them time and time again. Some of the words you maybe won't need, but most of them will be super helpful for you. So we're using presentations to teach you vocabulary and grammar implicitly within the TED Talks and within the written tasks that you're given. So groundswell, do you remember what groundswell meant? Nancy Duarte said that you could start a groundswell. It could be a flashpoint for a movement. A cultural shift in awareness or adoption of an opinion by a large section of society. Isn't that a lovely word? Groundswell. Okay, so for more information about this course, you can head on over to the Intrepid English Academy. Business English courses are available to our super student members. However, you can actually take our Business English Skill Set Small Talk course for free. You can find that on the Intrepid English homepage. Okay, question time. Have any of you written any questions in the Q&A box? If not, then please feel free to raise your hand and I will answer any questions that you may have. Okay, no questions at the moment. Well, for those of you watching on YouTube or on the Intrepid English website, then feel free to ask any questions either by commenting below the blog or below the video on YouTube, or on our website we have a chat box at the bottom right-hand corner of every screen. You can ask that chat box anything you like. It could be a question about today's webinar, it could be a question about the English language or about how to use the Intrepid English website, anything really. And we're more than happy to help at any time. So send us a message. Let us know if you enjoyed this. I'll just end with a quote from the lovely Nancy Duarte, who we focused on today. She said, "The future isn't a place that we're going to go. It's a place that you get to create." So thank you very much for joining me today. I look forward to meeting you and seeing you again very soon. Thanks.